listeners and viewers give you a perspective on what is AI?
Yeah, sure. In a sense, AI is an unhelpfully general term because it doesn't really explain the methods used. Is it machine learning? Is it something else? And I wasn't sure if we should use that term for a while. But in a sense, AI is a really good term because of the word artificial in there. AI is not like our own intelligence. It's not like human intelligence. AI is not another extraterrestrial form of intelligence that, runs itself. It's completely programmed and run by humans. And so I sort of like the definition of AI or the term AI these days. All of that said, what is it really? It's a way to outsource something. It's a way to put a form of intelligence, a very narrow one, onto a computer and let it run while you sleep and let it run at scale and whatnot. So that's what it is. It's just a very little intelligence that you can put to work, just like you could put a machine or a person to work to do something for you.
Funny you are saying that. So if you are from the tech side of the world, right, and you understand what AI is, and when you sort of go deep into philosophical aspect of what is artificial, what is machine, what is learning, and what is intelligence, I think you're absolutely right. Many times, even I question myself, why AI? Like what? It's in many ways it's deceiving, where it needs to be helpful, and it's and where it could be helpful, people don't understand what the significance is. And when you go out talking to companies about their perspective on AI, they're not doing AI, or they are just barely glorified analytics. And I think your book laid out in that as well, that you can be analytics heavy or AI. So talk to us, like, from your vantage point, what are you seeing in the industry as when it comes to startup using this word called AI and showcasing that, because it's a hot trend now. Almost every sentence starts with AI, whether it doesn't matter or like. So what's your take?
Yeah, look, I mean, what's working really well are perception technologies, things that see and listen, computer vision technologies, large-scale analysis of speech, and now large-scale analysis of big chunks of text. And then, applying those sort of core AI technologies to various industrial and commercial problems. So, for example, measuring inventory on shelves, understanding what's in a warehouse on the vision side, lots and lots of applications of computer vision, and then analyzing large volumes of text to extract meaning from news articles and whatnot. So, the perception technologies are working very well. And then the other thing that's working really well is a system like what I'd call a mixed, or some people call a mixed initiative system, which is, where humans are really working with the AI to correct something. So recognize this thing in this chunk of text or whatnot, but involving the human every couple of turns of the crank, so to speak, so that the human is constantly correcting the AI. So, it's working in lots of different fields. I can give hundreds of examples. And the technologies that are working are, quite specific applications of some of the core AIs.
Well said. So when you let's wear your investor hat for a few minutes. So when you look outside and you look the startup landscape and how AI being utilized, I think so when you evaluate a startup, how do you measure the effectiveness of its AI or its AI capability? Like how do you evaluate, if you can walk us through that?
Yeah, the broad methodology is pretty straightforward, and it's sort of like what you learned in high school about running a good experiment. What was the hypothesis? What did you think you could predict ahead of time? What was your method? What data did you put in there? What predictive modeling, what statistical models did you use? And what were the results in terms of accuracy? How closely did your prediction eventually align with reality? So, we really walk through those experiments in a very straightforward, analytical way with companies to understand how close their prediction is to being really useful. Now, that's one thing. Then you get into the detail of, okay, what is accuracy? How do you measure accuracy well? And in a sense, that's also really simple. It's, did the prediction play out? And how close to reality was your prediction in the end? How accurate was it? But you get some nuances there depending on what you're looking at. So there are other metrics to use like precision and recall, and the combination of the two, which is called an F1 score, et cetera, et cetera. So there are lots of ways to have an idea of accuracy. You use different tables to understand correlations at different levels of accuracy. So, there are lots of different ways to measure it, but it's not that hard, really. Like, it does come down to the basics of how did you run the experiment? Did you use a good experimental method? And how accurate was it? But digging into that level of detail is really important. Just saying we're using this method doesn't mean anything. Different methods can be really effective or really ineffective in certain domains.
And so from companies that approach you or from startups that approach you, what from your vantage point, what are some of the things that they get it wrong when it comes to the meaning of AI? Like, what do you
Mm.
see as a consistent problem when you are meeting folks who are addressing, and you rightly said it, mixed creating a mix initiatives solving through AI? What are some of the common things that you have seen?
Well, I don't want to say anyone's really getting it wrong, to be honest, because, if anyone's trying to apply this method in the real world, um, they're probably going to yield something, some sort of insight. That's the cool thing about AI. It gives us a way to think about something. It can yield a result that, in and of itself, might not be useful. It might not be a super accurate, useful prediction, but it might, just by looking at it, looking at the result, what it predicted, give us a new perspective on something. So I don't want to say there's sort of a right or wrong here. I guess general pitfalls are when people think that sort of throwing something into a generic model will yield something unique. I think it really pays to think long and hard about the causes of something in a system. So, what causes customers to buy this? What causes a delivery to be on time? And trying to program that into the model and be opinionated, so to speak, about what the causes of things are and what the AI should use to make its prediction. I think that's really important. And I think people often just sort of try to throw a generic model at something and expect it to correlate its way to sensibility. But actually, we have that sensibility in our own heads. So, we can shortcut that whole process. And then another pitfall, I think, is when people get stuck really cleaning up and labeling data. And, of course, it's really important. It is important for models to have clean labeled data so that they can learn from or process it into information and then learn from that information. But, often if that's your bar for getting started, you never get started because you spend all of your time clean labeling data. Rather, it's good to just take whatever data you have, one small data set, and just start experimenting and seeing what you can predict first.